good afternoon, and good evening to all of you to this webinar on the International Day of Equal Pay. First, we will start with some housekeeping issues. Interpretation is available in English, French, and Spanish. Please find the globe icon at the bottom of your screens and click on it to select your language. Please then press mute original video. And you will be having some respectful place where you will share questions and comments through the chat or also through the Q&A session. I would like to now introduce the webinar to you. This is a ITUC-led webinar on the occasion of the International Equal Pay Day, which is today, 18th of September. And the subject of our discussion today is trade unions in actions to achieve equal pay for work of equal value. According to the ILO, gender pay gaps represent one of today's greatest social injustice. On the occasion of the International Pay Day, we'll be discussing what trade unions are doing towards closing the gender pay gap and what we need to do more to enhance our efforts. We will also be celebrating the fights for women workers and their unions for achieving wage justice and equal pay for work of equal value. I'd like to now introduce myself. My name is Jyotika Sharma. I'm from the Fiji Trades Union Congress, Fiji, and the chair of the ITUC Women's Committee. With me today, I have 4 ladies who are going to be the key speakers, plus 1 additional speaker. And the lineup for today is Ms. Gigi Mathay, who is the Director for National and International Affairs of the TUCP in Philippines. Ms. Catalina López, General Confederation Secretary of Women, Equality and Working Conditions, Spain. Ms. Catalina Gonzalez, National Deputy Director, Aged Care United Workers Union, Australia. And with her today, she has a care worker, Ms. Pradeepa Thapa, who has worked in aged care for over 4 years as a personal care worker. And our final speaker would be Ms. Amanda Corsino, Secretary for Working Women, CUT, Brazil. So let me now start the panel discussion. And I would like to pose the first question to Sister Gigi Mathay from the TUCP Philippines. Sister Gigi, your question would be, why is it important for the trade union movement in the Philippines to fight for a minimum living wage? And what are the steps, if you could share to us today, what are the steps that you are taking to be able to achieve this living wage? And how do women workers in particular are going to benefit? Over to you, Ms. Gigi.
Thank you for that, Sister Jyotika. Good evening to everyone in Asia. Good morning to the rest of the world. I'm Gigi Mathay, and I'm from the TUCP. Anyway, okay, on to the questions given by Sister Jyotika. Living wage that is just, decent, and truly affords us to live is what minimum living wage is. In the Philippines, this is our constitutional right. This is made formal and official in our constitution, where it states that all workers shall be entitled to security of tenure, humane conditions of work, and a living wage. Further, the same section in the Constitution states that the state shall defend the right of the family to a family living wage and income. In the Philippines, minimum wage is not living wage. It is poverty wage. The minimum wage in the Philippines cannot afford a decent, healthy meal, shelter for families, and even education to form the future leaders of this country. Inflation rate through the Consumer Price Index has been increasing year on year. Nominal wage, which they call minimum wage, is at $610 per day or $11 per day. But the real wage, when you factor in inflation, how much my wage really costs, is only at 503 pesos or $9. That is $2 difference or 22.2% difference. With poverty wages, workers can never bring nutritious food to their family's table, which may mean malnutrition, unhealthy sick workers, and productivity dropping while children's own physical and mental health and growth stunted. That's your future outlook here. Due to miserable increases from the regional wage boards for more than 3 decades, the purchasing power of minimum wages stagnated while most, if not all, regional minimum wages fall below the government-set poverty threshold. In particular, all minimum wages are inadequate to afford the main ingredients required to eat the government-prescribed daily healthy food guide called Pinggang Pinoy or the Filipino plate, which according to the estimates by the Ateneo University Policy Center is at 693 pesos per day or 12.30 US dollars. That is 1.30 US dollar difference, propelling poverty, hunger, and stunting, especially among our children. All minimum wages are also no way near the family living wages estimate on an average by the IBAN Research Foundation at 1,207 pesos per day or 21 US dollars. Our minimum wage is only half of this at $11 per day. Without living wages, women workers especially bear the brunt of unpaid care work at home and gender pay gap at work. Considering that limited job opportunities for women even meddled upon by violence, harassment, and little to no voice and representation are said to drive the persistent gender pay gap. With the ratification and eventual implementation of ILO Convention 190 or the Violence and Harassment Convention of 2019, this will truly be a significant step in the right direction towards uprooting the long dark history and culture of inequality, violence, and harassment. The gender pay gap is still one of the most important concerns on gender issues in the Philippines. In 2024, the ILO estimates that 45.6% of women aged 15 and above are employed compared to 69.2% of men, a gap of 23.6 percentage points. ILO evidence suggests that this gap mainly stems from family responsibilities, marriage, caregiving, parenthood, indicating that women's disproportionate share of unpaid care work plays a major role in shaping gender employment gaps globally. In the Philippines, women only make up 78% of what men do, which indicates a large pay gap that has to be addressed. Women's incomes are just 43% of men's in rural areas, making this inequality much more noticeable. The disparity in pay between men and women is a glaring example of how little value society places on women's capacities and skills. Everyone must work together to influence, propose, change policies and practices, and take coordinated action to close the gender wage gap and guarantee that women are paid fairly and equitably for their work. We say equal pay for work of equal value. In the labor market, gender discrimination is prevalent. The work opportunities are scarce, and if there are any available, a great number of women are frequently even automatically offered lower paying jobs that are either entry level or non-leadership roles. Men are perceived and historically given more vital positions in higher paying management roles. There are little to no options left for women in terms of job opportunities, career growth, and income potential. Main probable cause of this is that women are not given access to basic education, proper training, and enough exposure to qualify for essential roles. This continues to happen because there are no laws in the Philippines that mandate equal pay for equal work. But many businesses still underpay women for doing the same job since the regulations are not always upheld and there is no penalty for non-compliance. In all this may pump prime the economy if we pay proper minimum wage and follow gender equality in the world of work. There will be cost savings to business due to increased worker productivity, less labor turnover, and cost savings to employers. There will be wage-led growth, which can boost consumer spending in effect, more disposable income to the workers, which means higher household spending, which can benefit the informal sector. Workers will have more purchasing power to spend on services and other informal economies. As an actual incidence in the Philippines, there is very small or insignificant increase on inflation, and there were no job losses in the past, but rather created jobs when we tried to increase minimum wage. In the Philippines, closing the wage gap is essential for advancing gender equality, as well as the country's development and success. A workforce that is more diversified, inclusive, and intersectional than the Philippines will stand as a chance to advance and prosper. You were asking me what steps are we taking to be able to achieve this living wage. It is crucial to make societal policy changes that address the underlying causes of gender disparity in effect to address gender issues in the Philippines. This calls for an all-encompassing strategy involving the tripartite or even multi-sectoral, multifaceted approach, which includes government, business, workers, social partners, and the civil society. What have we done to address gender gap in the Philippines? In our little big way, my organization, TUCP, through our representative in the Parliament, or the Philippine Congress Deputy Speaker Raymond Democrito Mendoza, has filed a congressional resolution urging government to define and determine the amount of family living wage. TUCP is also pushing for a legislated 150 pesos daily wage hike for all workers in the private sector, which has become a movement in our country since all labor organizations have banded and united together in calling for this wage hike. TUCP was one of the staunchest convener and loudest voice in the ratification of ILO C-190, which has the Philippines to be the first Asian country to ratify this violence and harassment in the World of Work Convention. Other ways which are being done and measures to close the gender gap and in effect making it beneficial to women workers: awareness and education, changing the mindset, making a conscious effort to change perception, educating everyone on gender equality, role perception, and cultural orientation. Women are not just made for the home, although we do it best, but care work at home is shared responsibility and should be equally distributed. Don't make us feel guilty for being away and earning a livelihood. We can also do what others do. There has to be affirmative employment policies and practices, eliminating violence and harassment within and beyond the workplace. Next, women development. Upgrading women's education level, upskilling, retraining, providing for development or even improvement programs and making them qualified. This is systemic, as we need to start from educational institutions, mandate organizations and businesses on intersectionality of qualifications that go across gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, language, disability. Providing training opportunities and infrastructure for women to enhance their skills digitally or technologically or manually. Representation, encouraging gender diversity in leadership and vital roles in organizations and government, increasing women and LGBTQIA+ persons' voice and representation within and beyond the workplace. And lastly, policies, laws, and practices, proposing equal pay regulations, mandatory reporting of the gender pay gap data. When policies are in place, penalties should be in effect for the violations to be addressed and violators penalized. To close the gender gap in the Philippines, an intersectional approach and multisectoral strategy will be needed. The labor movement in the Philippines, all major labor centers and organizations, the academe, government, with the lead of ILO, have put this one of the main major labor point agenda. For the country, which in agenda number 7, we specifically provided achieve gender equality and empower all women and the LGBTQIA+ community with provisions on the following: close the gender pay gap, recognize unpaid care work as work, and implement policies that allow greater participation of both men and women in care work. Ratify ILO Convention 190, which we have done in the Philippines in February 2024, continuously strengthen legal frameworks and policies that are aimed at ending violence against women and girls and combat attempts to roll back gains. Passed the Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, Gender Expression, and Sex Characteristics, or the SOGSC Equality Law, also known as SOGSC Equality Act, which some points we have already discussed. I think on hindsight, it is important that everyone in society rally behind gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Gigi Mathay from the TUCP, for some great insights into the role of the trade union movement in Philippines to fight for minimum living wage and what steps you are taking, plus how the women workers are going to benefit. Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I would like to move to our second panelist for this session, Ms. Catalina López from Comisiones Obreras, Spain. Catalina is the Confederal Secretary of Women Equality and Working Conditions. And today, my question to Catalina would be, the trade union movement in Spain has a long history in the struggle towards closing the gender pay gap. What have been the main tools that you have been using, and have they been effective? Over to you, Catalina.
Bueno, buenos días, gracias a todas y a todos. Buenos días desde aquí, desde España. Hoy, precisamente, celebramos los dos grandes sindicatos mayoritarios una asamblea por la reducción de la jornada de trabajo que estamos exigiendo al gobierno con la oposición de la patronal hasta las 37,5 horas, ¿no? En este momento está en 40 horas y esto es fundamental para las mujeres. Y lo es porque hemos comprobado desde hace mucho tiempo, como bien se ha debatido en el seno de las instituciones europeas también y de la OIT, que las brechas salariales son consecuencia de otras muchas brechas laborales, y nosotras en comisiones decimos mucho, y de otras grandes brechas vitales, ¿no?, que arrastramos las mujeres, que tienen que ver con los cuidados, preferentemente, que tienen que ver con que los cuidados recaen mayoritariamente sobre las espaldas de las mujeres, preferentemente estamos hablando de los informales. Esto hace que las mujeres tengamos contratos de trabajo con jornadas más reducidas, habitualmente el tiempo parcial lo mantenemos en España, creemos que en todo el mundo también. Las mujeres, el 80% de las mujeres que tenemos tiempo parcial en España lo tenemos porque no nos da tiempo trabajar a tiempo completo, porque tenemos que cuidar, lo que supone que no hay bastante herramientas, vamos a llamarlas solamente, para poder flexibilizar los horarios del trabajo que lo hagan compatible con la vida. Por eso es fundamental reducir la jornada. Por otro lado, tenemos que estos cuidados afectan mayoritariamente a los complementos salariales. Las mujeres, hay muchos complementos que están en la negociación colectiva, en los convenios colectivos, y que las mujeres no podemos cobrar porque tenemos que cuidar. Nos estamos refiriendo a los complementos de turnos, a los complementos de nocturnidad, de horas extras, los complementos de festivos, los complementos salariales de disponibilidad, de dedicación. Todos estos complementos son complementos muy masculinizados que pueden cobrar mayoritariamente los hombres y que inciden claramente, es una consecuencia de los cuidados sobre las cuestiones laborales y que terminan materializándose en la brecha salarial. Y luego, por otro lado, la brecha salarial estaba constituida con la pérdida de capacidad en la competitividad profesional, si queréis, o si queremos, como consecuencia de lo que lastra la maternidad. La maternidad nos aparta en muchas ocasiones de la carrera profesional, del trabajo. Esos parones a determinadas franjas de edades hacen además que tengamos que seguir trabajando más tiempo para tener pensiones, porque esta es la otra derivada. Tenemos tablas salariales, salarios más bajos que se materializan al final de nuestra carrera profesional en pensiones más bajas. Y la cara de la pobreza en este momento, en este país, en España, es una mujer mayor que ha estado toda su vida trabajando con un contrato precario, con un salario precario y que termina por tener una jubilación, una pensión de jubilación precaria. Me preguntabas qué herramientas ha utilizado en España para que en este momento la ruptura, el descenso de la brecha haya sido mayor que nunca. En febrero del año pasado, en España, la brecha estaba en el 18,6%. Pero la brecha salarial en España no hace tanto, en 2014, 10 años, estaba en un 30,7. Y estaba en un 30,7 como consecuencia de las políticas que precarizaron el mercado laboral en España de la derecha. Por tanto, si nos estamos buscando cuáles son las herramientas para esta brecha del 18,6, que resulta igual de insoportable que la del 30%, pero sí tenemos una clave. La brecha es estructural, pero puede reducirse. Y desde este 30 hasta el 18 se ha reducido con 3 grandes intervenciones. Una, como consecuencia de la subida del salario mínimo interprofesional en España, que ha afectado a millones de personas trabajadoras y mayoritariamente a mujeres. En este momento la situamos en 1.134 euros brutos, ha mejorado a 2,3 millones de personas y de esta cifra 1,1 millones han sido mujeres. Eso ha hecho que la brecha haya descendido. En segundo lugar, el pacto con la patronal, el quinto, aquí lo denominamos ANC, Acuerdo por la Negociación Colectiva, que ha hecho que se suban los salarios mínimos, con un tope mínimo para los salarios en la negociación colectiva, que ha subido mayoritariamente los salarios más precarios, que siempre son los de las mujeres. Y luego ha habido otro gran instrumento, que son los denominados planes de igualdad. Planes en las empresas para potenciar una conciliación corresponsable. Por tanto, esto quiere decir que es verdad que la brecha salarial es consecuencia de las brechas laborales y es verdad que las brechas laborales y por tanto la salarial son estructurales, pero también es verdad que a discriminaciones estructurales se rompen con reformas estructurales también sobre el mercado de trabajo. Y eso se hace modificando los salarios mínimos y modificando la contratación. Como consecuencia de esa reforma laboral que termina con la reforma de la derecha, en este momento tenemos más mujeres activas laboralmente que nunca en España y más mujeres indefinidas que nunca en España, con una de las menores tasas de temporalidad que desde que hay registros hemos mantenido en España las mujeres. El contrato indefinido también es un contrato más estable, más solvente y con salarios mayores. Por tanto, reformas estructurales. Desde Comisiones Obreras le hemos manifestado al Gobierno en muchas ocasiones que hemos reducido estrepitosamente la brecha hasta el 18,6 como consecuencia de los pactos del diálogo social con un gobierno de izquierdas o un gobierno de coalición progresista. Pero también le hemos dicho que ese 18,6 en este momento va a ser imposible terminar con él si no se reforman otras cuestiones sociales, si queremos, que no se han tocado y que parece que no tienen que ver con el ámbito laboral, pero que afectan claramente y que empezaba hablando de ello al principio, que son los cuidados. En España necesitamos un pacto estatal integral por los cuidados, que apueste porque los cuidados profesionales estén bien pagados, porque los hacemos mayoritariamente las mujeres, que apueste con buenas políticas públicas desde el gobierno de conciliación y corresponsabilidad, con guarderías, con capacidad para poder conciliar independientemente de la capacidad económica o de clase de la mujer que trabaja, porque no nos vale de nada romper techos de cristal con mujeres que tengamos grandes poderes y grandes capacidades de decisión, si para eso necesitamos a miles, casi millones en el mundo, de mujeres ancladas en suelos pegajosos de los que no pueden escapar y a las que, si me permitís la expresión, subcontratamos o delegamos esas tareas de cuidados con salarios tremendamente precarios. Por tanto, necesitamos intervenir sobre los cuidados porque la invasión de los cuidados en nuestra vida y en nuestro trabajo constituye y conforma ese 18,6 que en España tenemos de brecha salarial. Por tanto, es absolutamente inapelable que los cargos sobre nuestra vida dejen de invadir nuestra vida laboral. Y para esto necesitamos el concurso, necesitamos que los hombres participen de esto, porque esto es participar de la democracia. No podemos tener unas relaciones laborales y puestos de trabajo democráticos si nosotros salimos en la carrera desde un puesto más atrás, porque antes tenemos que cuidar. Por tanto, si tengo que resumir, que yo hablo mucho y espero no haberme sobrepasado en exceso, o no sé cuánto me queda, creo que la clave son reformas estructurales, legislativas, políticas públicas para los cuidados y convenios colectivos y negociación colectiva potente que apueste por salarios ecuánimes y complementos salariales que valoren no solo la puesta a disposición del tiempo a la empresa, sino que valoren la capacidad de trabajo, la innovación, la propuesta y no solo la puesta a disposición de la disponibilidad, horas extras, trabajar de noche, porque las mujeres no podemos hacerlo mayoritariamente. Y esto llena de discriminación las relaciones laborales de las mujeres y se concreta en la brecha salarial. Nada más, no sé si me queda algún tiempo más o terminamos aquí.
Thank you, Sister Carolina. I will give you opportunity to contribute further in the
Muy
discussion.
bien, perfecto.
Thank you very much, and good to hear of the successful strategies
Saludo, gracias.
taking in Spain to close the gender gap and to further reduce the gender gap. Now we'll move to the next panelist. Our third panelist is Ms. Catalina Gonzalez. She's the National Deputy Director, Aged Care United Workers Union, Australia. And with her is Pradeepa Thapa, who has worked in aged care for over 4 years as a personal caregiver. My question to Catalina: your union has been instrumental in securing important wage increases for workers in the aged care sector in Australia. Could you tell us more about this recent win? And I will also have a question to Pradeepa Thapa, the care worker from Australia as well. So what does this wage increase mean for you as a care worker, as well as for all the other thousands of care workers who will benefit from him? So we'll hear from Catalina first and then from Pradeepa Thapa.
So I'm going to start by sharing a PowerPoint. Please let me know when you can see it. Any of the panelists, if you can give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Yeah, good. So hello, everyone. My name is Catalina. And it's an honor to speak to you today. You know, like Jotika said, we had a major win in Australia for aged care workers around pay. And to be able to answer the question on how we got that win, I want to take you on a bit of a journey of how we got there. You know, as union people, you all know that when workers take on a fight, there is never an easy win. We have to use all the tools in our toolbox to be able to achieve even the smallest progress. And this pay win for aged care workers in Australia is no different. Workers fought for years to have their work recognized and valued. And so it's been a bit of a journey, and I want to share with you what that journey was like. But I want to begin first with actually telling you what we were able to win. So in 2002, there was a minimum wage set for aged care workers of $24.76 an hour, Australian dollars. And through a legal process called a work value case, workers were able to see a huge increase in that minimum wage. And in 2023, the Australian Fair Work Commission issued a decision that workers should get an immediate 15% increase, which brought them to $28.47. They also said that they would make a decision on a further increase in 2024, which just happened a month ago, which resulted in a further 8% increase that brought wages, or will bring wages by the end of by mid 2025 to $32.47 by giving workers an additional 8%. So there was about a total of 23% wage increases over the span of a year and a half given to aged care workers. And so to be able to reach that decision, the Fair Work Commission had actually, let me first explain what a work value case is. So to be able to achieve that huge wage increase, we brought a legal case, like I said, to the Fair Work Commission, which is Australia's Industrial and Employment Tribunal. And the purpose of that case was to ask that minimum wage rates be increased because the current rates did not adequately reflect the value of the work. And to be able to reach that decision, the Fair Work Commission had to look at a few things to be able to determine whether, in fact, workers deserved a wage increase on the merit of work value. And those three things were whether the current wages never truly reflected the value of the work. So whether historically just the public didn't really understand the value of aged care work, whether over time the work has changed so much that the wages are no longer adequate. And so, for example, many workers over the years have reported that residents that come into aged care are presenting with more complex needs. And so, the work has changed over time to be able to fit the emotional needs and the sort of clinical needs of residents, and whether historically the work has been undervalued because of assumptions based on gender. And of course, all of these three things that the matters that the Fair Work was supposed to consider to us were obvious. Of course, residents have more complex needs. Of course, the work hasn't been valued because it's been viewed as women's work. And of course, society has had no clear understanding of what the true work of an aged care worker is. And so, but what was obvious to us obviously wasn't obvious to the rest of Australia. And we had to fight really hard to be able to change that. The public at the time often viewed aged care as work that was easy, imagining that workers simply spend their time enjoying cups of tea with older Australians. Due to the lack of pressure from the public, governments didn't really feel compelled to appropriately fund aged care. Aged care is fully funded by government in Australia. And due to the lack of accountability about the usage of public funds, employers were focused on generating profit rather than actually providing quality care and quality jobs. And, the only resource workers had to be able to improve wages and conditions was through collective bargaining, but that was ineffective because employers frequently claimed financial hardship and blamed the government for not funding aged care appropriately. So we were sort of stuck. There was no way that we could move to try and improve wages. And so workers a few years back in 2019 took matters into their own hands, and union leaders got together and made a plan to raise the public profile of aged care by raising their voices and taking action. And they came up with a plan, a three-step plan. The first is that they wanted to change public perception of aged care work, and that with that change in public perception, they wanted to ensure that aged care became a vote changer, so that when the general public in Australia was deciding how to vote in a federal election, that they chose aged care as one of the issues they wanted fixed. And then once we achieved that, we wanted to secure a friendly government that would actually make real change in aged care. And so workers started going for months and months and months, going to community forums, to speaking to the media about the aged care crisis. They called for a royal commission to investigate all the issues in aged care and really raise the profile of what was happening in aged care. And all of this was before COVID. Then, of course, COVID hit, and workers then took real action. Aside from the fact that they had to work harder than ever and at risk to their own health, they spoke even harder and achieved really the opening of the public's eyes in terms of the difficulties in aged care and the lack of recognitions workers experience for the work that they did. And the union then made an application to Fair Work for a work value determination to determine whether workers' skills and their work was not valued appropriately. And at the same time, a federal election was called, and workers decided to then take the fight to the streets, and hundreds and hundreds of workers voted to take industrial action, to take strike action and take it to the streets right before a federal election, calling for real change in aged care. And all of that surround sound that we created over those 2 years resulted in thousands of workers walking off the job. And they did that for weeks, a month before an election, and because of that, they achieved a change in government. And during that time, they continued to lobby government, reaching out to the current and the opposition, and ensured that the government that won, which was the Labour Party, gave us some real promises around their plan to change aged care and fund aged care appropriately so that workers could receive good wages and better conditions. And so Labour won. The work value case was about to be decided. The Fair Work Commission came out and said 15%, and then later a further 8%. And the Labour government that we had just elected, throughout all that surround sound that we made, pledged $15 billion into aged care for wages. That was a huge achievement. You can imagine our members' faces when they heard the announcement of the $15 billion into the sector. It's unheard of. No other industry has received that kind of funding for wages. And so the Labour government has put that money into funding and has put a process in place to hold providers accountable to actually passing every cent of that money into workers' pockets and not using it for anything else. So huge achievement. Of course, we were concerned that as we were campaigning and organizing, that workers and the public were going to see this as this big gift we got from government instead of something that we actually deserved. And we did a lot of work digitally campaigning about what the actual increase would mean. And we did a campaign that I wanted to raise with you. The way we spoke about the increase is that we said, this is not a pay rise. This is a pay correction. This is a pay correction for years of being undervalued. It is not something that we have just been given. It's something that we deserved for years. And workers, we did this digital campaign where workers would input their years of service, their wage when they started, their current wage, and then that tool calculated inflation over the years of their work in aged care and spit out a number that we said they had been undervalued by over the years, to just really illustrate that whatever workers received from the work value case was not a gift. It was an actual pay correction for years of undervaluation. And what that's done for us is that it's ensured that workers don't see the end of the work value decision as the end of the fight. That's just the beginning. We've reached the pay correction and now we gotta fight for more. That fight, of course, has resulted in some amazing union membership. In our union, we doubled our union membership through all of that activity. We have hundreds and thousands of workers that have taken action throughout the last couple of years. And we have now really active groups of leaders. One of the ones that I'm the most proud of is we've got a group of digital leaders that are online, talking to each other, making memes, making videos, explaining everything that's happening and that we're doing. And it's really, really sort of expanded our reach across the sector. And the other really positive thing that happened, of course, is that the win wasn't just an aged care win, is that the win was a win for all women. Recently, new data released by the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows that the national gender pay gap is the lowest on record. It has fallen to 11.5% from 12% last year and 14% the year before. And so it's been a huge achievement, not just for aged care workers. Early childhood educators are seeing the effects of that. Recently, we also got an announcement from government that they will fund better wages for early childhood education. And we're continuing the fight across the care sector. So it's been really exciting. And one of the reasons why I wanted Pradeepa to join us and tell you about what this huge win has meant for workers.
Thank you, Catalina. Firstly, thank you everyone for providing me this opportunity to come and share my experiences on what it is like to work as a woman in Australia in the caring industry. So as you all know now that I'm a care worker, I work for the elderly people here in Australia. So my duties is doing basically everything for the elderly population. I help them with showering, feeding, grooming, taking them out for a walk, and even most of the time just sitting there, just holding their hands whenever they're feeling low. So it's like all physical and mental needs. I just fulfill their physical and mental needs. So I'll quickly share when I first started. I think my pay rate was only roughly $21, $22. And then I started thinking why this was happening. And then I found out through union that because this job is often looked as a women's job. So maybe I thought, oh, okay, that's the reason that we are being undervalued and underpaid. They didn't give us what we were working for because they didn't think that we actually go and work there, you know, because nobody was aware about what we actually do at the job. So with the union, we were able to fight and get what we deserved. Like Catalina said, that it's not a pay rise, it's pay correction for us as a women. Just speaking on behalf of my other colleague as well who are in this caring industry, once after this pay rise, we have it has made a huge impact in our lives, in our personal life. Like, we're able to pay our bills without thinking of thinking of our money. And then also, most of us, we had to rely on 2, sometimes even 3 jobs to just fulfill our basic needs. But now people are just happy sticking to one job, working 5 days a week, getting enough pay, and they're happy. They just go home, they get what they deserve. And another thing that I've seen is now slowly the male are also getting into the caring industry. So I think that's a big win. So it's not just seen as a women's work. So it's both of our jobs. So caring is both gender roles. So that's all I got to say today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pradeepa, and earlier on, Sister Catalina. There's some great insights into how Australia has managed to secure some very big wins, and it's always a good example for a region and for a world. And also good to hear from you, Pradeepa, your experiences and the changes it has brought about for the care workers in Australia. Now I'd like to move to the final panelist, Ms. Amanda Corsino. Ms. Amanda Corsino is the Secretary for Working Women from Brazil. And the question that I would like to put forward to Amanda is, the Brazilian government has recently passed a new equal pay legislation. What has been the role of the trade union movement in this? And why do you think this new law is important? Amanda.
Bom dia a todas e todos. Bom dia ou boa tarde, né? Depende de onde estamos. Vocês me ouvem? Sim? Falo em português. Uhum. Então, meu nome é Amanda, eu estou como secretária nacional de mulheres da CUT Brasil. O meu sindicato de base é o Sintex-DF, é um sindicato de trabalhadores e trabalhadoras dos Correios. E queria começar falando, né, da importância de estarmos aqui hoje celebrando o Dia Internacional da Igualdade Salarial. Aqui no Brasil hoje vai ser lançado, daqui a pouco, o Plano Nacional da Igualdade Salarial. E eu queria começar falando sobre as desigualdades aqui no Brasil. Eu pedi que enviei uma apresentação. Será que podem colocá-la para mim, por favor? No PowerPoint. Receberam? Não? Eu ia precisar dela, ela ajudaria, mas se não tiver como... Aí, aqui sim. Obrigada. Pode passar, por favor? Sim. Então, no Brasil, nós mulheres ocupamos, né, 44% do mercado de trabalho, em contrapartida, enquanto os homens ocupam 56%, né? Então, pode passar, por favor. Nós representamos... Pode passar. Isso, nós representamos quase 65% das pessoas que estão fora do mercado de trabalho. E isso se dá principalmente por questões relacionadas ao cuidado, à reprodução e manutenção da vida. Então, muitas mulheres deixam de entrar no mercado de trabalho porque tem essa responsabilidade de cuidar de alguém da família, uma criança, um idoso, uma pessoa com necessidades especiais, e depois permanecer no mercado de trabalho quando tem filhos. Então, essa questão de nós debatermos as questões da economia de cuidados, ela é muito importante para que nós, mulheres, possamos entrar e permanecer no mercado de trabalho. Pode passar, por favor. Próxima. Então, aqui no Brasil nós temos um salário mínimo de R$ 1.400, o que significa mais ou menos US$ 280, né? E 43% das mulheres recebem esse salário mínimo, enquanto os homens, apenas 32% recebem esse salário. Então, os homens recebem mais, né? E a diferença, né, salarial, ela no mercado de trabalho como um todo, ela é de 20%. Na verdade, ela chega a 22%. Nós, mulheres, aqui no Brasil, recebemos 22% a menos que os nossos companheiros. O próximo, por favor. E quando a gente compara, vai para o ensino superior, aí essa diferença ela aumenta ainda mais, né? Porque tem algumas profissões, alguns cargos que são considerados, que entende-se que são espaços mais masculinos, e aí acaba se pagando assim, tendo a diferença sendo aumentada, com os homens recebendo ainda maiores salários ainda, né? E aí temos essas questões que são colocadas com questões de horários que não são compatíveis. Assim, as empresas preferem contratar homens, porque para os empregadores, as mulheres terão dificuldades de fazerem horas extras, terão dificuldades de trabalharem aos fins de semana, de viajarem, pensando nessa questão relacionadas ao cuidar, né? Não entende que essa questão do cuidar, ela tem que ser uma responsabilidade tanto do homem como da mulher. Eles colocam essa responsabilidade como sendo só da mulher, e aí a dificuldade nessas áreas de contratação de mulheres. Pode passar, por favor. Aí sim. Então, assim, desde a nossa entrada, né, no mercado de trabalho, a mulher sempre passou por diversas dificuldades, enfrentou desigualdades desde o início, e aqui no Brasil, nós, desde 1920, por aí, viemos com várias greves gerais, reivindicando melhores condições de trabalho, onde as mulheres também tinham suas pautas específicas. Mas somente em 1943 nós conseguimos uma consolidação das leis trabalhistas, né? Colocar em um documento com força de lei a CLT, e nesse documento ele regulamentava jornada de trabalho, férias, e aí as mulheres conseguem colocar nesse dispositivo uma cláusula que fala que se a mulher desenvolver um trabalho de igual valor, ela tem que receber um salário igual. Só que a implementação desse dispositivo, ele foi muito difícil, na realidade não se concretizava, né? E aí os movimentos sindical e a CUT, como maior central do Brasil, encampou várias era até para ter colocado umas fotos aqui, várias manifestações, muitas ações de ruas, mobilizações, e até que nós chegássemos em 2023, e o presidente Lula, de um governo progressista, nós conseguimos a aprovação da lei, que aqui está errada, eu vou pedir para consertar depois, que é a Lei 14.611, que dispõe sobre essa igualdade salarial e critério remuneratório entre homens e mulheres, com o fim de reforçar o mecanismo já existente, mas ela traz pontos, outros mecanismos de fiscalização para que a lei de fato possa ser implementada. Pode passar para mim, por favor? Então, a lei ela é fruto de reflexo, né, de uma luta histórica nossa e uma promessa de campanha, e essa implementação ela tem, diferente do outro mecanismo, é a questão do relatório da transparência. É um relatório que as empresas que têm acima de 100 funcionários é obrigada a publicar com a relação dos salários. Não divulga o nome dos trabalhadores e das trabalhadoras, mas coloca a faixa salarial para a gente saber se a mulher que faz a mesma atividade com o homem, se ela está ganhando menos. Se isso for detectado, a empresa ela é notificada e ela tem um prazo para poder corrigir essa diferença. E aí, se ela não fizer, tem uma multa que é de 3% da folha de pagamento ou até 100 salários mínimos, que aqui no Brasil dá em torno de $28.000, que essa empresa paga por dessa multa, se não corrigir essa desigualdade. E permite a fiscalização dos sindicatos. Então, os sindicatos ele tem um papel importantíssimo de fiscalização da lei e de denunciar as desigualdades se elas permanecerem. Pode passar, por favor. E aí, a lei, ela coloca também como que se deve, né, inserir essa mulher no mercado de trabalho e combater essas desigualdades. Então, através da capacitação dos gestores, né, de formação de lideranças femininas e de trabalhar esse tema da equidade dentro das empresas, né? Através de campanhas, de formação, para que se tenha um ambiente de trabalho em que se entenda que a mulher ela tem que ser respeitada e ela tem que ter as mesmas oportunidades que os homens têm dentro do mercado de trabalho. Pode passar, por favor. Aquilo que eu falei, fomenta a capacitação das mulheres também, para que ela possa ascender dentro do mercado de trabalho em condições de igualdade com os homens. Pode passar. Aí a gente tem aqui uma crítica à lei, porque ela diz respeito à igualdade ao salário base, né, que é o principal salário que compõe a remuneração. Mas em outros aspectos, né, de adicionais, né, de outros ganhos, né, ela não fala. Então, você tem ainda essa disparidade em relação a outros itens que compõem a remuneração que não seja o salário base. E isso aí nós estamos discutindo, a CUT, ela participa do grupo de trabalho que discute dentro do governo, juntamente com outras centrais, esse melhoramento da lei. Que é importante dizer que ela foi construída com o conjunto de sindicatos, né, do movimento sindical, mas também da representação patronal. Então, os sindicatos patronais, foi uma mesa tripartite, e foi muito difícil para que a gente conseguisse impor aos patrões, né, foi uma derrota para eles, mas nós conseguíssemos essa lei para, de fato, fazer valer a igualdade salarial. Então, alguns pontos não foram consenso e nós não avançamos tanto quanto gostaríamos de avançar. Pode passar, por favor. Aqui, os desafios, né, para o movimento sindical. Qual o nosso papel? De estar atento à divulgação do relatório da transparência, né, fiscalizando as empresas que não estão cumprindo a lei e fazer a denúncia nos canais competentes. Mas, para isso, é importante que essa informação chegue às empresas, ao chão de fábrica, que a gente fala que é as trabalhadoras, para que elas se interessem, saibam, né, que tem esse direito e fazer essa fiscalização se a empresa está cumprindo. Pode passar. Então, quais são as ações que estão sendo encampadas pela CUT? Estamos pedindo que os sindicatos coloquem na negociação coletiva, né, cláusulas que reforcem essa questão da igualdade salarial e que promova também a maior participação de mulheres dentro das negociações coletivas, porque nós sabemos que quando a gente chega está debatendo um acordo, uma convenção coletiva, e chega no ponto de cláusulas relacionadas às mulheres, parece que às vezes nossos companheiros não têm a mesma atenção, a mesma vontade de fazer a defesa daquelas cláusulas. E nós, mulheres, com certeza, vamos estar lá defendendo, porque aquilo é importante para a nossa vida. Então, nessas cláusulas, pode passar, por favor? Nessas cláusulas, nós propomos, né, que venham cláusulas que garantam essa igualdade salarial, essa isonomia, de igualdade de oportunidades, de combate e prevenção à discriminação de gênero, né, cláusulas de enfrentamento à violência, ao assédio moral e sexual, também cláusulas que garantam creche ou auxílio creche, e também abonos que permitam a mulher levar o filho ao médico, que permita acompanhar reuniões escolares. Então, esse tipo de cláusulas que promovam o empoderamento, a igualdade entre salários e oportunidades, mas também que a questão do cuidar não seja um empecilho para o crescimento profissional dessas mulheres. Pode passar, por favor. Isso, e essa sensibilização dos recursos humanos, de contratação de mulheres, a importância da diversidade, o olhar que a mulher traz para dentro da organização. É importante os recursos humanos terem essa consciência. Vagas que não têm viés de gênero, é uma vaga feminina, uma vaga masculina, não. É uma vaga que é para ser ocupada ali por uma pessoa. E o PCCS, que é um plano de cargo, carreira e salário. É um plano que vai permitir dentro da carreira profissional, essa ascensão, né? Para que ser usado como um instrumento de superação dessas desigualdades. Então, por fim, né, a lei, ela não foi espontaneamente uma questão vinda como se fosse um favor do governo. Foram décadas de luta das mulheres, do movimento sindical, do movimento feminista nas ruas, dentro das empresas, nas assembleias, fazendo essa mobilização, buscando essa legislação específica, e ela é crucial, uma ferramenta crucial para que a gente possa promover a igualdade. Então, ela vem nesse sentido, para que a lei ela realmente vire uma realidade na vida de nós mulheres, nós possamos ter realmente a igualdade no mundo do trabalho. Muito obrigada.
Thank you, Amanda. I think you shared quite a lot on the role of government and legislation, what role it plays in ensuring wage equity. Thank you very much. We are open to questions. If anybody has questions from the audience, you can put it in the chat box. And while we're waiting, we'll move on to the final question that I have, the common question that I have to all speakers. And this is, what actions do we need to prioritize as a global trade union movement to help eliminate the gender pay gap for once and all? And I'll ask Sister Gigi to go ahead first in your response.
Yes. Hello. Yes. I think in the same way that we have put as our 15-point labor agenda, we would like to focus on achieving gender equality and empowering all women and the LGBTQIA community with the following provisions: closing the gender pay gap, recognizing unpaid care work as work, and implementing policies that allow greater participation for both men and women in care work. Continuously strengthening the legal frameworks, the policies that are aimed in ending violence against women, and to pass certain bills and laws that we have here, and the same way as if there are other laws needed to be passed in other countries as well, maybe we can do benchmarking on that. But I think the basic of all is awareness and education, correction of the perception and the cultural orientation that society has of women, of other genders aside from men, into entering the workplace and being given equal pay. And of course, I think continuously we keep on saying this, it's the personal and the professional development of women so that we arm them with the proper tools to be able to compete and to prove that they're actually worthy or even more than worthy of what the others can. Thank you, Jotica.
Thank you. And who'd like to go next? Sister Catalina?
No, thank you. Really, I think forums like this are like a big step in terms of just globally what we can do together in solidarity with each other, continuing to have forums like this. I think sharing of wins and losses and experiences we've had in our fight for pay equity is really important. And so continuing that conversation is it's really good. I also think there's a lot of work that we could be doing across different unions and trade councils around just the migrant workforce, especially in the care economy, and ensuring that those workers have the same rights in their host country that other workers have. I think that would go a long way in terms of equity for women and protections for women. And so I really think there is a role just for all of us to be talking and in dialogue with each other about not just how we improve things in our country, but what we can do and what we can learn from each other to continue sort of helping each other in the fight.
Thank you, Catalina. You spoke about global dialogue, one of the very important aspects. And over to Sister Carolina.
Bueno, buenos días de nuevo. Yo voy a no voy a repetir las palabras de las compañeras anteriores, refrendo todas sus palabras y sus propuestas, pero yo quería, además de lo que ellas han dicho, decir algo más. Y es que tenemos que hacer un esfuerzo porque las centrales sindicales mayoritarias en todo el mundo atravesemos la actividad, la acción sindical, tanto en el diálogo social con los gobiernos como en la acción sindical directa en las empresas y en la negociación colectiva, logremos transversalizarlo con perspectiva de género. A los sindicatos y a las centrales sindicales nos queda mucho por hacer para que nuestras organizaciones sepan entender que las decisiones no son democráticas si no logramos que el 50% de la población tenga las mismas oportunidades. Y desde luego tenemos que hacer que accedan a las direcciones de las organizaciones sindicales y de las organizaciones políticas, sociales, empresariales, las mujeres. ¿Por qué? Porque desde la toma de las decisiones de poder estamos dibujando el futuro a medio plazo y a largo plazo. Y siempre decimos que cuando tenemos solo hombres trabajando en la digitalización y en el Big Data, vamos a hacer que sea difícil que incluyan la perspectiva de género y que el rol que hemos jugado las mujeres en el mundo del trabajo se tenga en cuenta. Esto es importante porque son profesiones masculinizadas, pero además es importante porque quienes trabajan en esos sectores están programando el futuro. Quienes trabajamos en las centrales sindicales estamos programando las leyes laborales. Quienes formamos parte de las centrales sindicales estamos interviniendo en la política social. Por eso, además de todo lo que estructuralmente han planteado las compañeras, yo quería añadir que tenemos que dar el salto a esa participación paritaria de verdad en las centrales sindicales y en los órganos de gobierno de las relaciones laborales, también de las patronales. Y desde luego termino con dos cuestiones. La reducción de jornada es imprescindible y desde luego los derechos de conciliación, la corresponsabilidad es necesaria efectivamente para destruir las brechas laborales que terminan concretándose en las brechas salariales.
Thank you, Carolina. And now I'd like to move to Amanda for your concluding remarks.
Então, acho que essa atividade que está sendo realizada, ela é muito importante para que nós possamos saber como que nós estamos enfrentando essas desigualdades, né, em todo o globo, né, como está acontecendo na Austrália, como está acontecendo, colocando a nossa experiência aqui no Brasil, e para que a gente possa extrair, né, do que foi colocado aqui, ações que nós possamos estar trazendo para dentro das nossas entidades, né, buscando aí mais instrumentos de combater essa desigualdade. E aqui no Brasil agora nós estamos também nos organizando organizando as mulheres trabalhadoras, toda a classe trabalhadora, em torno do Plano Nacional de Cuidados, porque nós entendemos que, além da igualdade salarial, é importante que essa questão do cuidado, que é um empecilho, muitas das vezes, da entrada da mulher no mercado de trabalho ou a permanência dela, precisa mudar. Nós precisamos conscientizar que esse papel de cuidar, ele é do governo, que tem que ter políticas públicas, né, de creches, de escolas de tempo integral, de restaurantes comunitários, de lavanderias comunitárias, para tirar a mulher do trabalho doméstico e ela poder ir para o mercado de trabalho, esse trabalho não remunerado, que nós temos que debater também, e também das empresas, que tem que ter cláusulas que divida com a mulher essa responsabilidade, e da família. E o próximo passo também é a redução da jornada de trabalho, que nós temos que ter um tempo para que nós possamos cuidar de nós mesmas, não só cuidar das pessoas, da família, ter o trabalho, mas que essa redução de jornada ela sobre esse tempo para que nós possamos cuidar do nosso bem-estar também. Então, agradeço essa oportunidade de estar aqui pela Central Única dos Trabalhadores e Trabalhadoras, nesse dia que nós temos que ter um engajamento nas redes, em nível internacional, falando que a igualdade salarial ela não é um direito, ela é uma lei, ela é necessária até mesmo para que se possamos ter democracia de fato. Obrigada.
Thank you, Amanda. So now we have come to the end of our interesting webinar today. Lots of interesting points being shared from around the world. So I'd like to thank you to all the panelists for your valuable inputs and for your participation in this important occasion on World Day of Equal Pay. The role of trade unions remains crucial in building more equal, fair, and democratic workplaces, as you have already showcased with good examples from around the world, and to achieve equal pay for work of equal value as enshrined in ILO Convention 100 and in Target 8.5 of the SDG 8. We heard the role of trade unions from across the world, from Philippines, Spain, Australia, and Brazil. Excellent examples, and also the good work that you are doing in your unions, and some amazing work stories and wins that will be remembered for decades. Wage justice is the fight for all of us, irrespective of where we live, whatever work we do, which background, sector, or even gender. And I would like to say that our work with governments is also very important. So we heard some good examples about how we engage in ensuring that we have democratic governments. We engage with key stakeholders, global dialogue and sharing of learning, which is also very important. And one point also that I would like to say as a concluding remark is women in leadership. So the crucial role of unions to organizing women workers into unions, that remains a big challenge, and I think you all are doing really good work in that. With that, I would like to say I wish you all more success in the work that you all are doing in the trade union movement for all the workers in the country and globally as well. And I would like to also thank the team, the ITUC team, for putting this webinar together to make it successful and for all of us to reach out globally to our audience. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.